"Your Majesty, that cannot be true." The words were quiet, but they were powerful enough to silence the entire royal hall. In the Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom, where every person knew the importance of respecting the Alpha King, one unexpected voice had just challenged the most powerful figure in the land. And the person who spoke was not a noble, not an advisor, and not someone seeking attention. She was only Emma Sullivan, a 24-year-old Omega healer who had always lived in the background. The grand hall was filled with the kingdom's most influential families. Golden lights reflected across the marble floors, royal banners hung from the towering walls, and every member of the court stood waiting for King Nathaniel Blackwood to announce his latest decision. The Alpha King was known throughout the kingdom for his wisdom and fairness. His words carried authority, and his choices shaped the future of thousands. Most people listened carefully and agreed without question. But Emma heard something that did not make sense. She was not trying to interrupt. She was not trying to challenge the throne. She simply could not ignore what she noticed. Emma had spent years working as a healer inside the palace. She was used to observing details others missed. She noticed changes in people's conditions, small signs of concern, and information hidden between words. That ability was why she reacted before she could stop herself. The moment her voice reached the center of the hall, she realized what she had done. Every conversation disappeared. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. Emma slowly looked up and saw the Alpha King watching her. King Nathaniel Blackwood stood at the front of the hall, dressed in elegant black royal attire. His calm expression revealed nothing, but his silver eyes showed that he was listening. The nobles around him expected anger. They expected the Omega healer to apologize immediately. After all, no one openly questioned the Alpha King. But Emma did not run from the truth. She lowered her head respectfully and spoke again. "I apologize, Your Majesty. I did not mean to disrespect you. I only meant that the information may not be complete." The room remained silent. Nathaniel studied her carefully. For years, he had heard countless opinions from people who wanted something from him. They chose their words carefully. They agreed because it was safer. But this Omega standing before him was different. She was nervous, but she was honest. "Explain," the Alpha King finally said. Emma took a breath and stepped forward. She explained the detail she had noticed, the small piece of information that did not match the rest of the report. Her voice remained respectful, but she did not change her words just because she stood before a king. Everyone waited for Nathaniel's reaction. Then something unexpected happened. The Alpha King did not dismiss her. He did not ignore her. Instead, he asked his advisors to review the information once more. As the hall watched in disbelief, Emma Sullivan realized that her accidental words had created a moment she never expected. And King Nathaniel Blackwood realized something even more surprising. The Omega who had just called him wrong was the first person in years brave enough to tell him the truth. The silence inside the royal hall lasted longer than anyone expected. Everyone waited for King Nathaniel Blackwood to respond, expecting the Alpha King to be offended by the words of a young Omega healer. But instead of showing anger, he simply looked at Emma Sullivan with a quiet curiosity that no one in the court had seen before. For years, the people of the Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom had learned one important lesson. The Alpha King was powerful, respected, and always surrounded by those who carefully chose their words. Advisors presented information that supported their plans. Nobles offered opinions that protected their positions. Very few people ever spoke without thinking about what they could gain. But Emma had done the opposite. She had spoken because she believed something was wrong. Not because she wanted attention. Not because she wanted recognition. The next morning, the palace was filled with whispers about what happened in the royal hall. The story traveled quickly through the corridors. An Omega healer had questioned the Alpha King in front of the entire court. Some people admired her courage. Others believed she had made a serious mistake. Emma heard the conversations but tried not to let them affect her. She returned to the palace healing rooms and continued her duties as she always had. She prepared herbs, checked supplies, and helped those who needed care. She did not believe she had done anything extraordinary. She only believed that honesty mattered. Meanwhile, King Nathaniel reviewed the information from the meeting once again. He wanted to understand why Emma had noticed what everyone else missed. When his advisors confirmed that her observation was correct, the Alpha King remained silent for a long moment. It was not the discovery itself that surprised him most. It was the person who discovered it. An Omega with no political influence had seen a detail overlooked by experienced members of the court. Nathaniel remembered her expression when she spoke. She had been nervous, but she had not been dishonest. That difference stayed in his mind. Later that day, Nathaniel requested Emma's presence in the royal library. When she entered the room, she immediately bowed. She expected questions about her actions. She expected to explain herself again. "You believe the report was incorrect," Nathaniel said. Emma nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. I did not want to challenge your decision. I only wanted to make sure you had all the information." The Alpha King studied her carefully. Most people would have remained silent. Emma looked down for a moment before answering. "Perhaps. But if I knew something important and said nothing, I would not be doing my duty as a healer." Her answer surprised him. She did not see herself as brave. She simply saw honesty as a responsibility. Nathaniel realized that was exactly what made her different. She was not trying to stand above others. She was simply unwilling to pretend. As their conversation continued, the Alpha King learned that Emma had always been this way. She helped patients who had no influence. She offered guidance to new healers. She noticed problems before they became larger issues. Yet she never expected praise for any of it. When Emma left the library, she believed the matter was finished. She thought she would return to her ordinary life. But King Nathaniel remained standing by the window, thinking about the Omega who had spoken one honest sentence and changed the way he viewed the people around him. For the first time in years, the Alpha King was not thinking about a kingdom decision. He was thinking about one name: Emma Sullivan. The days following Emma Sullivan's unexpected moment in the royal hall brought a strange change to the atmosphere inside the Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom. The Omega healer returned to her usual responsibilities, believing that everything would eventually return to normal. She continued preparing healing supplies, organizing records, and caring for those who came to the palace medical rooms. To Emma, the moment with the Alpha King was only a situation that required honesty. She never believed it would become something people across the kingdom would continue discussing. But King Nathaniel Blackwood could not forget. The more he learned about Emma, the more questions appeared in his mind. He had expected to discover someone ambitious, someone who wanted influence after gaining his attention. Instead, every report told the same story. Emma helped others quietly. She solved problems without asking for recognition. She worked with patience even when nobody noticed her efforts. The Alpha King found that unusual because the royal court rarely operated that way. Inside the palace, people often measured every action by what they could gain from it. Emma measured hers by whether someone needed help. One afternoon, Nathaniel visited the healing rooms to see her work himself. The visit surprised the palace staff because the Alpha King rarely stepped away from official meetings without a specific reason. Emma immediately greeted him respectfully, but she did not change the way she worked. She continued arranging medical supplies and checking the condition of the rooms. Nathaniel observed quietly. He noticed how other healers trusted her. He noticed how younger assistants looked to her for guidance. He noticed that Emma treated everyone with the same respect, regardless of their rank. "You seem comfortable helping people who may never be able to repay you," Nathaniel said. Emma looked up with a small smile. "I do not help people because I expect something back, Your Majesty. I help because someone needs help." Her simple answer stayed with him. Nathaniel had spent years hearing complicated explanations from powerful people. Emma's words were different because they carried no hidden purpose. Later, the Alpha King reviewed several reports from the healing department and discovered something even more surprising. Emma had identified small issues before they became larger concerns. She had suggested improvements that helped the palace medical team work more efficiently. Yet her name rarely appeared in official records because she never asked for credit. Nathaniel began to understand that her honesty in the royal hall was not an unusual moment. It was part of who she was. Meanwhile, some members of the court started paying closer attention to Emma. They wondered why the Alpha King showed interest in an Omega healer with no noble background. Some questioned whether she truly belonged near important decisions. Emma noticed the change but remained focused on her responsibilities. She did not want power. She did not want a special position. She only wanted to continue doing the work she believed mattered. One evening, Nathaniel stood in the royal library holding the document where Emma's observation had first proven correct. He looked at her name written on the page and realized something important. The Omega healer had not gained his attention because she challenged him. She gained it because she was the only person in the room who valued the truth more than approval. And for the first time in many years, the Alpha King wanted to know more about the person behind that honesty. The Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom continued to whisper about Emma Sullivan, but the Omega healer herself remained focused on the simple duties she had always carried. She never looked for attention, and she never expected the Alpha King to remember her name. Yet inside the royal palace, her presence had become impossible to ignore. King Nathaniel Blackwood continued observing the changes around him. He noticed how people reacted differently when Emma entered a room. Some showed respect. Others showed uncertainty. The reason was clear. Emma represented something unfamiliar to the court. She was proof that someone without a noble title could still possess wisdom, courage, and influence. However, not everyone welcomed that idea. During a meeting of the Royal Council, several nobles began questioning why an Omega healer was being given attention by the Alpha King. They did not accuse Emma directly, but their words carried doubt. They believed important decisions should remain in the hands of those born into powerful families. Nathaniel listened carefully as the discussion continued. He had expected resistance because traditions were deeply rooted in the kingdom. But he also understood that traditions could not replace truth. Meanwhile, Emma was called to the royal council chamber for the first time. When she entered, she immediately felt the difference in the room. She was surrounded by people who had spent their entire lives near power. She was only a healer who had always worked quietly. For a moment, she wondered if she truly belonged there. But when Nathaniel looked at her, his expression reminded her of their first conversation. He was not asking her to impress anyone. He wanted her honest thoughts. "Emma Sullivan," the Alpha King said, "tell us what you see." The room became silent. Emma looked at the information placed before her. She carefully reviewed the details and explained her concerns with the same calm honesty she had shown before. She did not speak to challenge the nobles. She did not speak to gain approval. She simply shared what she believed was true. Some members of the council looked surprised. They expected hesitation. They expected fear. Instead, Emma remained respectful and confident. After the meeting ended, Nathaniel walked with her through the palace corridor. "You were not afraid," he said. Emma smiled slightly. "I was afraid, Your Majesty. I simply believed the truth was more important." Those words remained with him. The Alpha King had spent years surrounded by people who confused silence with loyalty. Emma showed him that honesty could also come from respect. Later, rumors spread throughout the palace that the Omega healer had once again spoken before the royal court. Some people began seeing her differently. Others still struggled to accept the change. But Emma did not focus on their opinions. She returned to the healing rooms and continued helping those who needed her. She did not realize that every small action was creating a bigger impact. King Nathaniel watched this transformation carefully. He had first noticed Emma because she dared to question him. Now he respected her because she never changed after being noticed. She remained the same person who valued honesty over recognition. And as the kingdom slowly began to change, the Alpha King found himself asking a question he had never expected to consider. How could one Omega, with no title and no desire for power, have become the person he trusted most? The days after Emma Sullivan's appearance before the Royal Council brought a new kind of attention throughout the Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom. The Omega healer had never searched for influence, yet her honest words continued to leave an impression on those who heard them. While some members of the court remained uncertain, others began to quietly question their own assumptions. They had spent years believing that wisdom came only from experience, family name, or position. Emma reminded them that sometimes the most important truths came from the people they never expected to hear from. King Nathaniel Blackwood continued to observe Emma from a distance. He wanted to understand why her presence affected the palace so deeply. It was not because she demanded respect. It was because she never asked for it. One afternoon, Nathaniel invited Emma to the royal library. Unlike the previous meetings, there were no advisors, no council members, and no audience. Only the Alpha King and the Omega Healer sat across from each other in the quiet room filled with ancient books and records from generations of rulers. Emma looked slightly nervous. She was still not accustomed to standing in a place where decisions about the kingdom were made. "You know, many people in the court disagree with your opinions," Nathaniel said. Emma nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. And yet you continue speaking honestly." Emma paused before answering. "Because I believe respect and honesty should exist together." Nathaniel looked at her carefully. That answer revealed something important. Emma did not confuse honesty with disrespect. She did not believe speaking the truth gave her permission to ignore others. She simply believed that kindness should not require silence. The Alpha King had spent years searching for people he could trust. Many offered loyalty because of his title. Many agreed with him because it was easier. But Emma's loyalty came from something different. She cared about what was right, even when it was uncomfortable. During their conversation, Nathaniel asked about her life before becoming a healer in the palace. Emma explained that she had always enjoyed helping others. She remembered small moments from her childhood when people around her needed support, and she realized that caring for others was something she wanted to continue. She never imagined becoming important. She never imagined that the Alpha King would remember her name. "You have spent years helping people without expecting recognition," Nathaniel said. "Why?" Emma smiled softly. "Because someone still needed to do it." Her answer stayed with him long after their conversation ended. Later that evening, Nathaniel walked through the palace halls and noticed something he had never considered before. The kingdom was filled with people like Emma, people who worked quietly, people whose efforts were rarely celebrated, people who carried value even when no one was watching. Meanwhile, Emma returned to the healing rooms believing nothing between her and the Alpha King had truly changed. She still saw herself as a simple Omega healer doing her duty. But others had begun to see what Nathaniel already understood. Emma was not remarkable because she had spoken against a king. She was remarkable because she remained kind even after the entire kingdom started paying attention. And for the first time in years, King Nathaniel Blackwood found himself looking forward to hearing one person's thoughts more than anyone else's. The name Emma Sullivan was no longer just a name connected to a surprising moment in the royal hall. It had become a reminder that truth, when spoken with compassion, could reach even the most guarded heart. The Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom continued to change in ways that few people expected. What began as a single honest sentence from an Omega healer had slowly become a moment that challenged the way the entire palace viewed respect and worth. Emma Sullivan never realized the impact she had created. She continued waking before sunrise, preparing healing supplies, and caring for those who entered the palace medical rooms. Her life remained simple, even as more people began to notice her. King Nathaniel Blackwood saw something in Emma that others had overlooked for years. Her honesty was not a sudden act of courage. It was a reflection of who she had always been. To understand her better, Nathaniel asked his advisors to gather information about her past. He wanted to know the person behind the words that had changed his perspective. The reports surprised him. Emma had spent years helping others without receiving recognition. She had supported new healers when they felt uncertain. She had stayed late to organize supplies when the palace needed extra assistance. She had offered comfort to those who felt forgotten. Yet none of these actions appeared in official records because Emma never believed they were important enough to mention. When Nathaniel read through the reports, he remained silent for a long time. He had met many people who wanted their achievements displayed. Emma was different because she did good things even when no one knew her name. Meanwhile, Emma noticed that the atmosphere around her had changed. Some servants who once ignored her now asked for her advice. Younger healers looked up to her experience. But not everyone accepted the change. A few members of the court still believed an Omega should not have influence near the throne. They questioned why the Alpha King valued her opinions. Emma heard those whispers, but she refused to let them change who she was. She had never wanted a higher position. She had never wanted power. She only wanted to continue helping people, in the way she always had. One evening, Nathaniel visited the palace gardens and found Emma caring for winter plants near the healing area. The quiet setting was different from the formal halls where they usually spoke. "You know, people are beginning to see you differently," Nathaniel said. Emma looked at the flowers in her hands and smiled gently. "I hope they see the work, not just me." That answer surprised him. Even after receiving attention from the entire kingdom, Emma still focused on helping others rather than herself. "Why do you always place others before yourself?" Nathaniel asked. Emma thought for a moment. "Because everyone has moments when they need someone to care." The Alpha King looked at her and understood something important. Emma did not believe kindness made someone weak. She believed kindness was a responsibility. For years, Nathaniel had searched for strength in leaders, warriors, and advisors. But now he realized strength could also exist in patience, compassion, and honesty. As winter continued across the kingdom, the connection between the Alpha King and the Omega Healer grew stronger through trust and understanding. Emma still believed she was only doing her duty. She did not see that her actions were inspiring change throughout the palace. She did not know that the person who once stood unnoticed in the corner had become the one person the Alpha King trusted most. And as Nathaniel watched the kingdom slowly open its eyes, he knew Emma Sullivan was not simply someone who told him the truth. She was someone who reminded him why truth mattered. The Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom stood at a moment of change, but not everyone was ready to accept it. While many people had begun to respect Emma Sullivan, some members of the royal court still struggled to understand why an Omega Healer had gained the attention of King Nathaniel Blackwood. For generations, the kingdom had followed traditions that placed people into specific roles. Nobles advised. Leaders commanded. Omegas were expected to remain in the background. Emma's existence near the center of power challenged those old beliefs without her ever trying to do so. She simply continued being herself. The growing attention from the Alpha King created conversations throughout the palace. Some praised Emma's honesty and dedication. Others quietly questioned whether someone without a noble background should influence important discussions. During a royal council meeting, these concerns were finally brought before Nathaniel. Several advisors carefully expressed their doubts, saying that the kingdom needed stability and that change should happen slowly. Nathaniel listened without interruption. He understood their concerns, but he also recognized the deeper issue behind their words. They were not questioning Emma's actions. They were questioning whether someone like her could be valued equally. Meanwhile, Emma was asked to attend the meeting because the council needed her knowledge about the healing department. When she entered the room, she immediately felt the tension. She knew some people were watching her closely, waiting to see if she would make a mistake. But Emma remembered what she had always believed. Respect did not come from pretending to be someone else. It came from being honest while treating others with kindness. Nathaniel turned toward her and asked for her opinion on the matter being discussed. Emma carefully explained her thoughts, making sure to acknowledge the experience of the other advisors, while still sharing what she believed was true. Her words were calm and thoughtful. She did not try to prove herself. She only wanted the kingdom to make the best decision possible. After hearing her response, the room became quiet. Several advisors realized that Emma was not seeking influence. She was simply offering her perspective because she cared about the outcome. Later, as the meeting ended, Nathaniel walked beside Emma through the palace corridor. "You understand that many people still doubt you," he said. Emma nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. People are often uncertain about things they have never seen before." Her answer made him pause. She was not angry. She was not bitter. She understood that change required time. "Does it bother you?" Nathaniel asked. Emma looked toward the palace windows where the winter sky stretched above the kingdom. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But I do not want people to accept me because you ask them to. I want them to see my actions and decide for themselves." Nathaniel realized that was the difference between Emma and everyone else around him. She did not want the power of the throne to protect her. She wanted understanding to replace judgment. As days passed, more people began noticing the same qualities that had first caught the Alpha King's attention. Emma listened before speaking. She helped before being asked. She remained kind even when others questioned her. The kingdom was slowly learning a lesson it had forgotten for generations. A person's place in society did not determine the value of their heart. And King Nathaniel Blackwood knew that the Omega who once accidentally challenged his words had become the person who helped him challenge the beliefs of an entire kingdom. The Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom was slowly entering a new era. But the greatest change was not written in royal documents or announced through grand ceremonies. It was found in the small moments that happened throughout the palace each day. The way servants spoke to one another had changed. The way healers worked together had changed. And the way people looked at Emma Sullivan had changed most of all. The Omega healer who once walked through the palace halls unnoticed was now someone many people respected. Yet Emma remained the same person she had always been. She still arrived early each morning. She still listened carefully to those who needed help. She still believed that kindness did not require an audience. King Nathaniel Blackwood noticed this more than anyone. He had expected that attention might change her. Many people became different when they gained recognition, especially when that recognition came from the Alpha King himself. But Emma never changed. She did not use his trust to gain influence. She did not use her position to place herself above others. Instead, she continued to focus on the people who needed her most. One afternoon, Nathaniel visited the healing rooms and found Emma helping a young assistant organize supplies. The assistant looked nervous and apologized for making mistakes. Emma simply smiled and offered guidance. She did not make the person feel embarrassed. She helped them learn. Nathaniel watched quietly and understood why Emma had become so important to him. Her strength was not found in commanding others. It was found in making others feel valued. Later that evening, Nathaniel and Emma walked through the palace gardens. The winter snow had begun to soften, and the first signs of a new season were appearing across the kingdom. "You realize the entire court knows your name now," Nathaniel said. Emma looked surprised. "I never expected that." "Why not?" he asked. She looked at the quiet garden paths before answering. "Because I was never trying to become someone important. I was only trying to do what was right." Nathaniel smiled slightly. Her answer reminded him of the first day they met. She had not spoken because she wanted attention. She had spoken because she believed truth mattered. The Alpha King had spent years surrounded by people who saw his crown before they saw him. Emma had done the opposite. She had seen a person before she saw a ruler. Across the kingdom, people were beginning to understand the lesson behind everything that had happened. The importance of a person was not created by a title, a family name, or a place in society. It was created by the choices they made when nobody was watching. Even some members of the royal court who once questioned Emma began to respect her. They saw that she was not trying to change the traditions of the kingdom for personal gain. She was simply showing them a different way to understand strength. Prince Caleb Blackwood also began spending more time learning from Emma. He realized that leadership was not only about making decisions. It was about understanding the people affected by those decisions. As the days passed, Nathaniel found himself thinking about the moment Emma first spoke in the royal hall. A single sentence had interrupted the silence of the court. At the time, everyone believed she had made a mistake. Now they understood something different. She had not challenged the Alpha King. She had reminded him of something every leader needed to remember. Truth was valuable because it came from people who cared enough to speak it. And for King Nathaniel Blackwood, the name Emma Sullivan no longer represented an unexpected interruption. It represented the person who helped him see his kingdom, and himself in a completely different way. The Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom had entered a new chapter, but the greatest transformation was not found in the royal halls or written in the history records. It was found in the hearts of the people who had learned to see each other differently. The story that began with one unexpected sentence had changed the way an entire kingdom understood truth, respect, and strength. Emma Sullivan still walked through the palace corridors every morning, carrying the same calm expression she had always shown. She was still the Omega healer who cared for others before herself. She still found meaning in small acts of kindness. But now, when people saw her, they no longer saw only her position. They saw her character. They saw the person who had spoken honestly when everyone else remained silent. King Nathaniel Blackwood often remembered the first moment they met. At that time, the entire court believed Emma had made a mistake. They believed she had crossed a line by questioning the Alpha King. But Nathaniel understood the truth now. Emma had never tried to challenge his authority. She had simply respected him enough to tell him what she believed was right. That was something he had not experienced in many years. As the seasons changed, Nathaniel began making decisions differently. He listened more carefully to voices that were often ignored. He paid attention to the people who worked quietly behind the scenes. He understood that a kingdom was not built only by those with titles and influence. It was built by every person who contributed with dedication and care. Emma noticed these changes but never took credit for them. When people praised her, she always reminded them that change happened because many people were willing to see things differently. One evening, Nathaniel and Emma stood together in the palace garden, watching the lights of the kingdom shine across the valley. The winter air was peaceful, and the once divided court now felt more united than before. "Do you ever think about that day in the royal hall?" Nathaniel asked. Emma smiled softly. "Sometimes. I still cannot believe I said those words out loud." Nathaniel looked at her with a quiet smile. "I am glad you did." Emma looked surprised. "Even though I called the Alpha King wrong?" "Especially because you were honest," he replied. "You reminded me that a ruler should never be surrounded only by people who agree with him." Those words meant more to Emma than any reward could have. She never wanted power. She never wanted a special place beside the throne. She only wanted to make the world around her a little better. And somehow that simple desire had changed everything. The people of the Silver Moon Wolf Kingdom remembered the day an Omega healer spoke a truth that nobody expected to hear. They remembered how the Alpha King listened instead of ignoring her. They remembered how a single honest voice created a new understanding between people who had always been separated by tradition. Emma Sullivan had never planned to become someone important. King Nathaniel Blackwood had never expected to find trust in someone so unexpected. But destiny often arrives in moments that seem ordinary at first. A simple conversation, a brave choice, a name that stays in someone's heart. And from that day forward, the kingdom carried a lesson that would never be forgotten. True strength is not found in making others afraid to speak. True strength is found in having the courage to listen when someone finally tells the truth.